Okay, Carter, I had this discussion with somebody online about whether it was possible to teach somebody who's new to programming C++. He thought it was impossible to teach somebody that's new to programming C++, and that it's too complicated of a language and you have to teach them Python. That was what he said. And I feel like there is a way to C++ first. You just have to skip all of the outdated old parts that nobody should be using anyway. And you should just learn the modern version. So I thought I could teach it to my son, who's 9, then I would prove my... Now, he does have a little bit of programming experience. He's done some JavaScript programming in Khan Academy.
And HTML.
Say it out loud.
And HTML and CSS.
Yeah, he started doing that about 2 days ago. So he does know a couple things. But still, he's never looked at C++, and he's definitely a beginner. So the first thing is that we're going to be doing this in the upcoming videos in Linux. I'm running Linux here in a virtual machine, which is like a virtual computer, just because it's convenient screen recording software. You have to learn a couple basic for using Linux before we get to the code. Hopefully by the end of this video, we're going to make our first C++ program, but we do have to start with a couple Linux basics before to that. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, so first we're going to talk about folders and directories. Sometimes you hear somebody say directory, sometimes you hear some folder.
I like to say folders.
It means the same thing, okay? It's just a place that files are at. Now, this window that you see right here, let me grab it. What this is listing is in a folder called Home. There's a bunch of other folders and there's a file.
Yeah.
Do you understand that? Okay. And here's the thing about folders, is to be inside of other folders.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about that, there must be one folder that's like the root. It can't go on forever. And that's actually exactly the way it works. There is a root folder. I wonder if... I don't think you can get to it with this window here, but there is a root folder, and all the folders inside of it, or all the folders are ultimately inside of that big top level root folder. All the files are inside of folders. Okay, so now that you know what folders are, and those can be inside of folders, we're going to use this thing called the terminal. Now, what is the terminal? The terminal is a place where you can type commands into Linux. In the old days, before we had Windows, this is just how computers work.
Yeah.
You only the terminal. There was no desktop, and the terminal wasn't in a window, it was the whole computer screen.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you a handful of basic commands, and what these commands are the commands that you need to go from folder to folder and to see what else there are.
Okay.
And they're in the terminal that do those things. So, first command is show me the files in my folder. And that is ls. You can think of that as list, maybe, if that remember it, list. It shows you the current files in the current folder.
They actually taught me that, and they told me to do that when I was learning HTML.
Really?
Yeah, they did.
So, so here I am. I'm in some directory, and I did ls, and we saw a bunch of files. Now, this terminal program is pretty smart because what it's doing here is it's making the folders blue and the regular files a different color. Now, the important thing, if you notice there's a green file here, I'm not going to explain to you why that's green quite yet. But to begin with, this terminal making the folders blue. So, I should be able to go into one of these other folders, right?
Yeah.
So, the command for going to a different folder is called CD. It stands for change directory.
Yeah, I already knew how to do that command, but...
So you do it like this, CD space, and then you put in the name of the folder you want to go to. Once if you notice, command prompt changed a little bit. Now it says downloads, right?
Yeah.
And that's because I'm in the down directory. If I type ls, well, there's files in this downloads directory.
Yeah.
So they don't print anything. Now, if I want to go back to the parent folder, which is the folder that contains the folder I'm in,
Yeah.
I can do cd ... and that takes me back. And it actually takes me back to where we started. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I did cd downloads, and I was in the downloads folder, and then cd ... and now I'm back.
Yeah.
Now, remember we were talking about how there's a root folder and all the folders are inside of that?
Yeah.
Well, from the terminal, I can show you that. If I type cd /, it takes me to the root of the whole computer. Now if I type ls, well, there's a whole bunch of different files there, right?
Yeah.
Every file on my computer is under this root folder somewhere.
Yeah.
Now this is a Unix machine. So on a Unix machine, every user gets a special directory that's just for them, their home directory. When you start up this computer and it asks you to put in your name and your password, that's for your user, right? Every user gets a special directory, their home directory. So I'm going to take you to home directory now. If you look, here we are in the root. There's a folder called home. So how do you think I could go to the home folder?
You type cd space home.
That's right. And now there's a folder in there called TD. If you notice, you didn't see this earlier, but that's my username.
Huh.
See, every user gets their own folder. And the computer only has one user right now. It's TD. So we can go to TD and see what's there. And look, it's where we started.
Wow.
You understand?
Yeah.
When you open a new terminal, it starts you in your home directory.
Yeah.
So that's where we were when we first started. Okay. That's all the basics of, for now, that you're going to need. Well, actually, we need a place to work to show you the first example room. So let's actually, I take it back. We're going to look a couple more things. Let's make a directory to put our code in. Do that?
Yeah. Let's make a directory for our code.
Now the command to make a directory is mkdir, make dir.
Make directory.
Yeah, but like code. Hit enter. Now if I type ls, you can see that there's a code directory now,
Yeah.
right?
That you just made.
Yeah. So let's go into the code directory. And what do you think we'll find in here?
Nothing.
That's right, it's an empty folder.
Because we just made it and we put code in it.
Yeah. Let's make another folder in for, eventually we'll make a folder for every video. How about that?
Yeah.
So let's make a folder called first. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to go into first. Okay, finally we have a place to store our files. And the reason we did that is that we're going to now write a little bit of code. We're going to write the very first C++ program. And this is a lot of people's very first C++ program that we're going to write.
Is it Hello World?
It's Hello World.
No, because that was my first program too.
Was it?
Yeah, but I forgot that language now.
Okay.
Because I learned JavaScript and it took a while to learn that. So I forgot the old.
I'm going to teach you a command, another command here called touch. And if you give touch a file name, it creates an empty file by that name.
Oh.
So you see I did touch.cpp.
Yeah.
It created first.cpp. Now empty file, there's nothing in it. Like we're going to open that file in a second. I'm going to show you there's nothing in it. But that's a nice way to make a
Yeah.
file. Okay, so now you need an editor.
Yeah.
An editor is a program that lets you edit a file.
It's pretty much explained in the name.
Yeah. What we got here? Editor. What do I have? Okay. I have Emacs here, which is an editor a lot of programmers use, but it's complicated, and maybe eventually we'll get it, or something else complicated. But for now, let's just go to regular old text editor.
Yep.
Because this works the way a lot of people are already comfortable with.
Yep.
And we're gonna click open.
Yeah, and I already know how to use this because I've been using it on my computer to make HTML.
Okay. See the directory we created?
Yeah.
Is right here. I'm gonna click that first. And look, there's the first.cpp.
Yeah,
I'm
and
gonna
that's the
click
name
it.
of our first program.
Yeah. And now it's open. And if you notice, there's nothing in it. It's an empty file. Okay.
And we can type code in that and save it so that we have something in the file.
Yep. Okay. So now we're going to actually start writing our first code. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's see. How do I want to do this? Okay. I'm going to type in some stuff, and then I'll explain what it does. Now, this program is very short, but I'm going to type it in first. Okay. Include Iostream.
Oh, I understand what that. I understand in the programming thing I use, there is that kind of thing like Iostream. There is things like that with different names, but you do them in those less than and greater than lines. So, yeah, that's it. That's essentially all I know about that. Okay, I understand what he's doing right now, because it's clearly a text. That's clearly text that he's typing in.
That was text that I was typing in. Okay, now I saved it. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to type G+. And don't worry, I'll explain this in a second what I'm doing here.
Isn't it C++?
Hold on. Got something. Okay. Okay. And then I'm going to run it. And it says hello world. Okay. Now, let's talk about what this does. The first thing I want you to know is when you're using C++, you're creating a program that the computer is able to run directly. A lot of the time these days when people are programming, they're not creating something that the computer can run directly. They're creating something that another program can run.
Yeah.
But when you're using what's called a native language, what you're actually creating is a file full of instructions that the CPU can actually just run immediately. And that's one of the reasons why the speed of what you can create with a native language is so much greater than some of the
using
compiled languages.
HTML or like CSS or JavaScript, you have to use another thing to run.
Yeah. So those languages, the computer doesn't actually run those languages.
Yeah, it runs them, it converts it into
yeah, exactly.
zeros.
Whereas,
this one, it just converts it straight into zeros.
Right, it converts it right into a binary executable. Now, if we look at this directory, if I type ls-l here, -l just gives you some more information.
Yeah.
You can see that the file here called first is 9,168 bytes. Now that's pretty small for these days to actually have a real program.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start talking code, and then I'll explain what the command I typed did. But let's look at the code first. Okay. So, the first line of code here is pound include Iostream. And what this is doing is telling the compiler that I'm going to use some functions that are in the Iostream area.
Oh, I know what Iostream is.
Yeah, you don't. It's fine. You don't have to know this yet.
Okay.
This function right here, this standard cout, that is in Iostream.
Oh.
And I wanted to print something, so to use Iostream.
Okay.
And also this standard end-l, that was also something that was from Iostream. So if I hadn't put include Iostream, like if I get rid of that and I save it, and then I go back and run our command again, you'll see we get errors. It says, error cout is not a member of standard.
Yeah.
And because nobody told the compiler that C was a member of standard.
Yeah.
What happens when we do this is that we're telling the compiler we're actually doing when we do this include is that we're telling the compiler to first suck in a bunch of code from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that code tells the compiler about this function and about this thing.
Also, for HTML, you have to do another thing that's like that.
Really?
Yeah, you have to on Khan Academy, it'll just start you off with everything you need to write the code. If you're doing it on an editor, you're going to type in a ton of things, like a ton of you're going to make a ton of bits of the file.
Yeah.
You also have to make it so it knows that you're doing HTML.
So let's talk about the next line of code. It says int main int c char star argv bracket square bracket parentheses. Okay, I'm going to tell you every bit of that. But what I am going to tell you is that this is a special function. Every program has to have a function called main. Now, they can have a million other functions and then call those other functions anything they want. But an executable has to have a function called main. And the reason is, that's where it starts. That's where the code starts running. Do you understand?
Oh.
if you don't have a main, then what's the first code to run?
Yeah.
You know, it loads your program memory, and then at some point, it wants to tell the CPU, okay, start executing the code here, but where's here? Well,
Yeah.
with C++ and C, here is main. So basically where we start. Our program here has only one line of code, and that's standard cout, arrow, hello world, end up. Now, I'm going to show you something. Let me get rid of this endl and what happens. Because I could have done this. I'm going to compile it and then run.
Well, that's the job that you actually have to use in JavaScript after each line.
Check this out. You see, command prompt is now after the hello world.
Yeah, why is that?
Now, if I put the endl back, watch what happens. Now it's on this line.
Oh.
And I'll tell you why. Because there's a special character that's invisible. When it's there, it causes printing to go next line.
Yeah.
And end standard : endl says, write this character that causes printing to go to the next line. Now, the reason that's important is if I wanted to have another line of code here that said another standard out, like that standard cout, and I'll put the endl on this one. Okay, now, if I save this and compile it and run it, okay, we got hello on one line, we got foo on the next, right? But watch what happens if I get rid of this standard end.
You should be on the same line, if I understand it now. Yep, they're on
Look,
the
it
same
put the
line.
foo right after.
Yeah. It's hello world foo.
Yeah.
Hello
So
world foo.
what that standard end line does is cause printing to go to the next line after that, after it occurs. Okay, now, okay, I'm not going to tell you about all the rest of the stuff on this line here because that's going to be in another.
Yeah.
I might not get to it in the next video. It might be like a few more videos down the way.
Yeah. Is this going to be in a video future?
That's right. Okay. I think that's all I wanted to cover on this first video. We've made our very own Hello World program in C++.
Yeah.
And we learned a little bit about how to see around and how to make directories and look at the file there.
Yep.
And hopefully you enjoyed the video, and we're going to be making a few more.
Okay, bye.
Bye.